What?
Still.
You're up. You're live.
Yeah.
Okay, we're live.
Nice.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I have my friend here, Brittany, who
Good morning.
Is going to share her birth story. I do just need to say, I was a little bit horrified last week when I looked at my Facebook Live and I saw how dirty my hair was. And I was slightly embarrassed. And normally I don't really care. It totally really doesn't bother me. So this morning we had a birth, of course. And I ran home and I took a shower and I was coming to work and I was like, I'm going to put a little bit of makeup on this morning to redeem myself.
You're hilarious.
I don't know, I think that might have been one of my all-time lows last week of my physical appearance. But so I put a little bit of mascara on this morning. Anyway.
You look gorgeous, doll. You look gorgeous.
I did totally think that this morning. I woke up and I was like this. Maybe I should make a little bit of an effort and not be so scary looking.
You always do that though when you get on camera without makeup. You always come back after like, why did you let me do this?
And I think like
but
I
nobody
should
cares.
Probably make a little bit of an effort.
Literally,
I mean, you know,
everyone loves you so much.
Who
It doesn't
cares?
matter.
It really doesn't matter. So we're going to share a birth story today. So we interviewed when you were pregnant with your baby.
Yep.
And you did not have your baby with us. And she came in after the baby was born, which was the sweetest thing, to tell me how excited you were about your birth and to share a really great birth story. And you had the baby in the hospital and it was awesome. And so we're so excited to hear, you know, we talk about birth stories and we often talk about, you know, obviously we talk about out of hospital birth all the time. And we don't have a lot of people that come on and share their positive birth stories, unless there are moms that have had, you know, started with us and then transported to the hospital, and then they'll come on and talk about their transport and how the transport went. Yeah. But in this case, we started with a hospital delivery by choice. So let's just start somewhat by choice. So we met and the decision.
I actually talked to you over the phone first. So I remember, it's funny, I don't know if I told you, but I was on Yelp. I think I was looking for Santa Clarita fish market or something, and SCV Birth Center came up, literally. And this is
not sure that's a good thing.
That's random.
Fish market, birth center.
I know, but you know what? I found you,
and
I go, that's interesting. I didn't even know there was a birth center here in Santa Clarita, so that's what made me reach out. And when I talked to you on the phone,
and you were already pregnant, but you were looking for a fish center, like fish market.
Pregnancy craving,
Oh, but, that's hilarious.
Yeah. But I was at the time. I was trying to figure out what I in my mind, I didn't want to stay at the hospital, and I definitely didn't want to stay with my OB. So I was already looking into, okay, I need to find someone else because I didn't really like the first experience, and it kind of left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. She's a great person, but it just, something was missing, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
But the first thing, more importantly, was that she had a fish craving. And she accidentally found the birth center. So starting there.
And I literally called right then. So I called you when I got off the phone with you, and one very, I would say, an important or significant point of that is you watered a seed that was already within me, and that is watching the video, The Business of Being Born. So some of you guys may have seen it. If you haven't, definitely watch it. It's amazing.
And you could get it on Netflix or Amazon Prime. YouTube.
Yep, YouTube.
The Business of Being Born. Very, very popular.
Yeah. So I watched that maybe 7-8 years ago back when I was in college for a class. And when I watched it, I don't want to have any epidural. I want to go natural. All these different things, these different feelings and stuff. So when I watched it again, I realized that I watched it and it just brought up all these feelings. And so I really just kicked into gear. I'm like, okay, just wanting to learn so much.
You were reminded.
Yeah. And when I got off the phone with you, I did cry because I felt you made me feel so good. And it was a different experience on the phone versus being in person, eye contact with the OB. And so that's when I knew, okay, it's the connection, it's that emotional part of it. Like birth is very emotional, it's a sacred thing. And I felt like it was being treated like it was just very like a microwave, appointment. And I didn't really like that.
It is a sacred thing. And it is, the medical model is, unfortunately, it has to sort of be that way where you're just a number and you just got to kind of move through the system.
Yeah. And I didn't want that. So you gave me some resources about looking into a doula, and that helped me too. It was just solution seeking, trying to figure out how can I have the birth experience that I want within a hospital setting. So that is something that I did learn from it, is that you can have a great experience at a hospital. And so, and I went and did that,
Right.
which is awesome.
Because we talked about, we're not all about, oh, you have to have the baby here, and we're not trying to sell you on an out-of-hospital birth. We want to give you the tools to help you make the choice that's, right for your family, being good stewards of your finances, and really, the whole picture. Good.
Yep, and that's definitely next time I do want to have it at a birth center. My health insurance didn't cover it, and I called them. I talked to a lot of different people. I even had our HR department reach out to the rep, and they sent an email back saying that they wouldn't cover it.
What was that? Can you share that?
You mean Kaiser?
Oh, the
Kaiser.
email?
Oh, yeah.
It was Kaiser.
Yeah, it was through Kaiser. And so they wouldn't cover it, and they did say they're going to be getting water tubs soon. But they said, pretty much don't hold your breath. But they're planning to do that.
Good.
But I switched to a midwife, and again, I did a lot of research on my own. I read Innate Gaskin. I said her name wrong. A Guide to Childbirth.
Great book.
Read Spiritual Midwifery. That was actually the last
super
one
hippied out book.
Yeah, very hippie out. With that one, I say just have like a shopping cart mentality. So take what you can from the book. Everything else leave on the shelf because it may not be for you. It does have a lot of scripture in it, but even if you don't have a faith, then you can still take a lot from it.
Spiritual Midwifery does?
Yeah.
Has scripture in it?
Or I'm so sorry, not spiritual midwifery. It's a supernatural childbirth.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That one has scripture.
Spiritual midwifery doesn't have any scripture in it.
Supernatural childbirth.
Yes.
So my mind,
which is out of print, I believe. We have a copy here.
Oh, I didn't really know that. I watched or listened to it on audiobooks.
Awesome.
And it's a short, easy read. But I just took from it what I could take, what worked for me, and scriptures and things that definitely did help. And I pulled from a lot of things. So hypnobirthing, I looked into that. I pulled from that. I listened to affirmations pretty much daily. There were some times when I would miss, but I mean, morning and night I would try to do that.
Wow.
I did use YouTube a lot. And so I watched a lot of people share their stories on YouTube. I did try to focus in on what I wanted, which is women giving birth without medication. And I did watch some that were at home, some that were at birth centers as well. I watched videos on women crowning because I needed to, for me, I needed to know what my body was going to do. I needed to know what to expect. So that way I wasn't freaking out because it was just fear of the unknown. And so I say it as I had to do a lot of unlearning and relearning.
That's
there was
right.
so much fear.
Right, because that's our
that
culture, right?
In.
And it creates this fear, tension, pain syndrome. So you really deconstructed the stories that you heard.
Yep.
Looked at videos, you really did a lot of work on it. Awesome. Really important in our culture because we're told that birth is dangerous. It's so scary. It's terrible. It's the worst pain. all these stories, and our media shows birth being really dramatic, and right, and that's what we think it is. So you unlearned that.
Yeah, and I had throughout. I think it's important to say throughout my journey because it started literally at the beginning of first trimester all the way through. So for 39 weeks and 4 or 5 days, every day I was inputting something positive every single day. Even if it was something small, whether it was me listening to something, reading something, or just doing my daily affirmations. And it definitely helped. More than what I even expected because
it really seeps in there.
Going in, I was very calm, chill, and I was able to move through it. And we talked about it very briefly, but I wouldn't consider it pain. I didn't feel any pain. There was discomfort. It was very intense, but it wasn't pain. As for any of you mamas out there who breastfeed, that's pain.
When that baby doesn't latch well, that's pain.
That's pain. Or if you are hammering something, you smash your finger, that's pain. But it wasn't that way, and that's what makes me really it's natural. It's something that our body does, and then within contractions as well. Just how after the contraction. It's gone. That feeling is gone.
The fear was gone, so then you didn't have the tension in your body, and then you spiral, right? It's awesome. Yeah,
a lot of deep breathing as well is what I did as far as how I moved through each contraction that came. It was a lot of breathing. My partner did a lot of counter pressure, and that was super, super, super helpful.
Did you get a doula?
No, I did not get a doula. I did interview doulas. But we did not end up moving forward with the doula, and I did want to, but we still did. We did okay. And I plan to come to a birth center, so I probably won't hire a doula.
The next time?
Yeah, the next time I probably won't. But I do encourage. I highly recommend it. Doulas are amazing. I just had just interviewing them. I knew that it would be a good move to make, but just for us, we just decided to not move forward with it for a couple of different reasons. But I definitely recommend a doula.
Yeah, great. So you went forward, you had a nurse midwife, and because you're delivering at Kaiser, and our Kaisers have nurse midwives, a little bit different than how we do out of hospital birth, right?
Yeah. And the midwife, so the midwife that I had, you do know her. You recommended her, actually. I think you did mention her. And so I went and searched and found her, and so it was a good experience.
Was she on call when you were?
No,
or that's
she
who you
was
did
not
your
there.
prenatals with.
Now, and that's something else that's really important for any women who are having babies at the hospital, especially with Kaiser. I'm not sure how it works with other hospitals or other health insurances, but for Kaiser, there's a team, there's a network of midwives and a network of OBs. So you never know who's going to be on call at that time. And so for me, I wanted to make sure I had that continuity of care. So what I did is I scheduled all my appointments with the same midwife. And a lot of women don't think to do that. I didn't even know if I could do it, but I did ask.
You can do it. You have to ask.
Yeah, because otherwise they'll schedule you with someone random. So I really, self-advocacy was huge in this process.
And it's hard to do, don't you think?
It is, because, they make you feel as though you're being difficult when it's really just, you're trying to, protect and guide the type of care that you want.
You can orchestrate what you need, and it's really hard to self-advocate.
Yeah, within the system it totally is, but I was able to manage and do it, and it worked out good. So I'm glad that I got that consistency with her, and she knew everything that I wanted going in, so she could help prepare me for different things. Whereas when I had an OB, I was asking, is there a list? I said, is there a worksheet or a document that goes over the whole process?
Right.
When, how often?
Where's the manual?
Yeah. And seriously, how often do I have doctor's appointments? What will we be going over during the doctor's appointments? What will happen? Like the anatomy scan and
what'd they say?
Different tests. And she goes, no, we'll let you know when we come to that.
Right. We'll let you know. We'll let you know what you need to know. It's on an as need to know basis.
Yeah. They tell you to ask a lot of questions, but when you do start asking certain questions, they don't really.
Right. And you often don't know what questions to ask, right? Because you've not done it before. And then when you do ask, they're like, oh, don't worry about that. Oh, we'll handle that later. Oh, don't you worry about that.
My first appointment, I was so overwhelmed. There were 3 questions. I left and I'm like, oh wait, I didn't ask this, I didn't ask that. Now what do? Can I call? No. You call the 1-800.
So you want to write down your questions before you go in. And I was just listening to a podcast on how it's important for women to advocate for themselves in the medical system, and don't ask, but tell the care provider, I'm going to be recording this today. Because it's going to help me listen to it after, right? And some care providers get really nervous and they don't like you to record your prenatal. But when you record it, it's not because you're trying to catch anybody saying something wrong. It's because you want to be able to listen and pick up the stuff that you miss.
Absolutely.
And then it also, a byproduct of that is it encourages the care provider to really be mindful of what they're saying and really give you evidence-based information versus anecdotal stuff.
Yeah.
Great.
Very true.
So then what happened? So what's happening here with these? You look like me with 2 phones.
I know. This is my old phone, which is
okay. So you're going to tell us about the labor?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my son his name is Roderick the third, and we call him Ro. Yeah. And we call him Ro. He's 6 weeks. He was born August 19th. He was 7 pounds 3 ounces. Perfect. And my little love, my little joy. And I went, so it's kind of difficult to say when I went into labor, but on the night before, I told you that I started to have some leakage, and I actually did take notes of it. So I think it was me dispelling my mucus plug.
Cervical fluids. Yeah. It can look a lot like amniotic fluid, but it still has a texture, and it's water breaking is pretty significant. So you started losing some of that mucus plug.
And then, so I just went to sleep. We stayed up super late that day, which was also something that's abnormal because in the pregnancy, I would always go to bed early, 9:30, 10 o'clock. The next morning, I woke up and then I felt crampy around 8 a.m. And then it was 10 a.m. when I started to feel a little bit more intense cramps. But I still wasn't sure. I'm like, I don't know if this, what's going on. I don't know if these are contractions or not. I feel like it should be more intense than this if it is a contraction. So we just kept going with the day, but I knew that it was getting closer to that time that he was going to be coming within the next couple of days. And so we just started running errands. We did laundry. We went to Target. We
all
went
the
and got
things
breakfast.
you think that should have been done that you didn't do. You're like, oh, it's actually happening.
Yeah, he's putting my partner's putting the bassinets together and everything. It just, you know, so we're doing all that stuff, but I'm glad that we did have those tasks to do because I was able to focus on that. So as it began to get more intense, then I was focusing on the task that I was doing, and then I would maybe just need to walk away and then just sway and just move through it. But at that point, it still wasn't overly intense, but it did start to stop me in my tracks. Like, okay, I needed to stop and just focus, you know, for a minute. Yeah. So I got to that point. I called the hospital and they go, well, you sound like you're doing good. They asked me a few questions, you know, how far they're coming apart, how far apart are the contractions, about discharge, all of that stuff. And they said, I think you're doing good. Just keep doing what you're doing, and then just call back if anything gets more intense. So I continued to do that, and then it was around 3 when it got really intense. That's when I was at Walmart.
PM? 3
Yeah.
PM. Starts to get
3 or 3:30.
stronger.
Yeah, it starts to get way more intense. And I'm like, all right, babe, it's time for us to go.
Can't be in Target anymore.
Yeah, and everywhere was so busy that day.
Yeah.
I mean,
lines. You're
so
like, I gotta
busy.
get out of here. This is not working.
So we went home. I was able to take a shower. He packed the bags. And I remember being in the shower. I'm like, babe, get it, whatever we need, get it, put it in the car because we've got to go to the hospital.
How close were they at that point?
They were around 5 to 6 minutes apart. And
so
the funny
still
thing,
early.
Yeah, and I still like the whole time I marked when I would start feeling something. I didn't really mark. I think you see like around 4 or 5 o'clock it starts to space out. Yeah, 4 or 5 p.m. because I have in my notes 10 a.m. 10:08. Like I had the times and all of that, but then
you started because you stopped.
I wasn't.
Okay. Not that they were spacing out, but you stopped hitting the start thing.
You know, my contractions were the whole time they were consistent. It kept going from 10 a.m. until I had them at 1:59 a.m. They kept
pretty fast.
So I got in the car. It was around 6:30 or something like that. Another important thing that I do want to mention is I didn't social media blast, call a bunch of people. Right. I called my mom. She
keep it on the down low.
Yeah, and I kind of just went with, again, intuitively what I felt was right. And for me, it was, I don't want a bunch of people calling, and I need to be able to focus. It just felt right. So I called her, let her know that we were on our way to the hospital. She prayed for us, and then we got there, and then it was at 7:36. They checked me. I was 6 centimeters, so they checked me in. Yeah, I was
so good. Such a great time to be admitted. Great.
I was really happy about that.
Also, if you're going to get an epidural, that's like generally 6 centimeters or more is a good time to get an epidural if you were going to get one. But she didn't get one.
It's definitely a good point. And then some other things I did too. They asked you questions around pain. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain tolerance? And for me, I didn't want to focus on pain or anything that was opposite of what I wanted. Because I know what you focus on becomes bigger. So for me, I had to change the language. That was just what I preferred. And so I told her, I said, well, no, I don't subscribe to pain. I don't
subscribe to pain.
I love it.
And
so good.
And she loved it too. She was a really good sport. She goes, wait, what?
Yeah.
And so Rod is like, well, what she means is she'd rather you say this or say surges.
Because our words make a difference.
They do.
Our words are really important. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, it's all about your perception of it.
And so they're waves or they're surges, and it doesn't have to be pain.
Yeah, intensity.
I mean, it's intense.
Very intense. So they checked us in, and I think they told them, like, you know, we got one of those ones who wants to come in, doesn't want medication, who's going to take her. And the nurse comes over, she's like, oh, I got her. And the nurse was awesome. She did not help, she didn't provide any physical support, but it was just more emotional and just coaching with breathing. And that was very helpful. And then Rod helped with all the counter pressure
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we set up the room. So I brought in a diffuser. We had the lights turned off.
And they let you plug your diffuser in.
Yeah. So another thing we did too is we went to the labor and delivery tour that they have. So that way we knew what the rooms looked like so we could prepare. It's so important to prepare. And I've heard I have friends of family. We all know people who you kind of go into pregnancy and you don't go to the classes. And,
right. We spend more time researching what kind of phone we're going to buy than we do on how we're going to have our baby. Because we think, well, everybody has a baby. I'm just going to go to the hospital and have a baby. And then it's like, oh my gosh, 35% C-section rate. Yeah. And induction and all that stuff. But so you did your homework.
Yeah, I did. Oh,
it's a big deal. It's a major life event. Like,
Yeah, I try my best to cross.
I mean, you're
all
born.
T's.
Like, probably the biggest life event you're ever going to have in your life.
Yeah, and the best. The best. So yeah, we set the room up, and I had my medicine ball. We brought other tools too. I didn't know what I would need or what I would want. I made sure I let them know that I wanted to be able to move around. I wanted to potentially get in the shower. So they didn't put that band on me. They put like a mobile.
It's telemetry. Yeah,
Okay.
not all hospitals have that, but it's a telemetry monitoring. Some have it. Some nurses like to use it. Some don't like to use it. There are pros and cons, but it's awesome. And Kaiser Panorama is where you were, right?
Yeah.
And they have that, so that's good to know.
Yeah. And these are all questions that I asked prior to going in.
Yeah.
Again, so I already knew what to expect, what they I had a good idea of what they were going to ask or what they were going to require, all of that. So we set the room up really nice. I used lavender as well, which was amazing.
Great. Lavender's great. Vetiver is great. I was just reading about black pepper and cypress. Yeah.
Okay. And I didn't know how I would feel about it, and so I used it prior to, where I would just relax while I was at home, listen to my affirmations, and I would have the diffuser going. So I was really preparing myself for labor, even though I had no idea what the contractions would feel like. But in it, I believe that it helped, and it was really nice atmosphere. Again,
so I'm going to just go back. 7:30 is when you got there, and you were 6 centimeters.
Yeah, it was 7:36. I was looking for the note that I just read to you earlier. I don't know where it went on my phone.
Was it on that phone? It was 7:36, and we talked about how she got a HEPLOC, not an IV, GBS negative. HEPLOC is the port for the IV in case you need it. It's a happy medium between no IV, and the hospitals really like to have access to the main, which is reasonable. Yeah. In case of emergency. And you were 6 centimeters minus 2 station. Yeah. And then at like 10:30, I think it was 11:30. I was 9.5. And at zero station, right? So the baby's coming down, right? Perfect. And then at 1:30 is when I began to push, and at 1:59 is when I had him. Which is so fast. Average pushing for a first-time mom unmedicated is about 3-4 hours. You pushed the baby out in 20 minutes. Yeah. It was so fast. Yeah, I remember at the end, I never got to a point where I wanted to stray from the birth plan that I had or wanting medication, and there was fear. I did have a little bit of fear around that. Well, I wouldn't use the word fear. I guess I just was nervous, like, oh my goodness, I don't know what this is going to feel like, and am I going to, the medicine is right there, so am I going to want to ask for it? Even when the anesthesiologist came in, he did my HEPLOC, and he's like, do you want to hear anything about epidural? No, none. Me personally, I didn't want to hear anything about it. And I just focused on the contraction in front of me. I focused on the one that I was in. And there was a few times where the nurse had to remind me to make sure that I'm resting in between. And I remember hearing this before. Recover. I would hear this there in videos, and I'm like, how are people, they're saying they're sleeping. How do you sleep for a few minutes? Yeah, 2 minutes. You can do it. You can totally. You can totally do it. You get so tired. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And what you said is you just focused on the contraction at hand. You didn't anticipate, and you weren't stuck in what was behind you. You're just in the moment. Yeah. Awesome. Super mindful. Super just inward and just present to that. And then afterwards, I would just like literally just let my body drop, like on the ball, just like. And breathing was super important. It definitely felt like I physically ran a marathon because of my breathing. And it wasn't anything fancy. Just inhale, you are going to keep talking. Okay. You're doing really good, but somebody needs me on here. If you have questions, let me know.
You can talk to me.
Yeah, so it was just more so like inhale, exhale, deep breathing, and that is really what helped. That and the counter pressure is what helped the most.
Cindy says, I'm just loving how educated and intentional she is for a first-time mom.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I do give the credit. One thing I will say, too, I have a faith. I give the credit to God, because even with all the research that I did, you can have a plan and things can always change. You never know. So I like to control things. So I really had to just give it over. Yeah, I had to give it over to God. So I just prayed and I said, you know what, God, I've done everything that I can do to prepare, and I believe that this is what you have for me. This is the type of birth that you want me to have, because it's in my mind and I feel that I can do it. I really believe and feel within that I can do it. And so pray to let it go, and everything flows. So everything that I input, everything that I learned, it just started to flow and come out. Whatever I needed at that moment, it came out. And let's see. I had water. So this is the water bottle that I use.
Nice.
Partners really can help. Boyfriends, husbands, whatever, can really help with giving you these things if you don't have a doula. But that's what he did. He would bring me water. The little fruit snacks. You know the little push squeezy fruit snacks that you give, or I think they're veggies or fruits that are mashed up.
Sure.
I use that. That's what I use to eat to keep my energy.
Like they're like the applesauce packets. Yeah. But like different flavors.
Fruits. Yeah. So I use that because I didn't want to eat anything super heavy.
Sure.
And that helped me keep my energy too. So just that and water. Let's see. Do you have any questions?
I don't personally have any questions, but if you could give maybe some key pieces of advice for moms considering no matter how you birth, like what are some key things that you learned along the way that are nice to pass on, I guess, to other moms?
Yeah, well, the education classes, even the ones offered by the hospital, I went to those, and I wasn't planning to go to them because even my midwife told me, she goes, I mean, you can go to them if you want. I mean, I would encourage you to, but you definitely want to make sure you're going to something else outside of that. Don't just only go to the hospital classes because you're only going to get so much. Right. And it turned out that the ones that I went to, they were actually pretty good. They were better than what I thought they would be. But the main thing it did for me is it helped me prepare for what protocols that hospital has in place. You know, even the little bracelets that they put on baby, mom, and dad, I didn't even know that. And so, you know, you learn a lot about what is the hospital's culture. You get to know that better, and that's good going in. So that way, again, you're not blindsided or, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. So that was one thing. I will say, let me pull up my notes. I do believe that for me, it was my birth experience. I feel like I definitely tapped into a part of myself that I didn't know that was there. So I just feel so much stronger. I feel very empowered, and I'm more in love with myself and proud of myself. And you know, a big reason why I'm doing this is because I really want to help educate and inform other women of their options, that there are other options, and that you can do it. You can absolutely do it, but you do have to prepare for it. Just like you don't go, like I mentioned, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You don't go into a marathon without having prepared and practiced for it, maybe having some coaching or people around you to support you through that. But it's totally doable, and so I want to help to educate women on that. And you said other pieces of advice.
Like how about you tell us a little bit about the experience after your baby was born?
Oh, so afterwards I felt good. I didn't know how I'd feel. The nurse said, oh, she kind of prepped me and said that, you know, I might have some pain when it comes to urination, things like that. But I didn't have much of that, even with pushing. So if there are any mamas on here who haven't had their babies yet, I was nervous for that point. I thought that it would be very painful, but it wasn't. It actually felt good to push, to relieve the pressure when you have that contraction coming. So I did do the golden hour of Panorama City honors that, which is basically the first hour of life. As long as you're not high risk, there's no issues with you or the baby, then they allow baby to stay on your chest. And so we did that, which was awesome. And then after they went and weighed the baby, did all that stuff, and I got cleaned up, all that, and then we switched over to postpartum after a few hours, and I was so tired. So tired. So what we did was a lot of sleeping. They have lactation consultants, and so they helped me with getting baby to latch, with breastfeeding, and yeah, that's pretty
How
much
long were you in the recovery?
24 hours. So it wasn't
and then
that. Well, it was a little over. It seemed like it was a little over 24 hours. We left the next day. It was just really late. We left at nighttime. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big difference, I think, between the birth center too and the hospital is the amount of time you stay after.
Yeah. I think usually it's 1 or 2 days if you have a vaginal birth. You know, you're not high risk. But I felt good. That's what I will say. I felt good after. It was just, I could really feel in my chest the breathing that I'd done. I could feel it.
You did that marathon.
Yeah, I'm like, I definitely did it. In my mind, I totally did it. So I felt that, but I overall felt really good. And then when it was time to go home, honestly, the first couple of days I felt good. The second day I was out, I had to run up to Target. I didn't have to, but I wanted to go. And I still felt good, but you still need to take it easy, because after a couple of hours, I started to feel a little bit of soreness in my back. And I honestly think that was from the counter pressure, because I kept telling my boyfriend, I kept saying, More pressure. And day 5, I felt achy in my back. And so what I did is, prior to giving birth, I did prenatal massages. Mm-hmm. So I went back for a postpartum massage day 5. And I highly encourage all of you to do that. If you're pregnant right now, definitely body work is super, super important. So getting those pregnancy massages help a lot. And 2 other things I did too. Me personally, I did it because I felt like it would help, and I totally believe it did. Is acupuncture and also the chiropractor. Mm-hmm. And I know you guys use Dr. Herda. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I went to her as well, and so that helped a lot. I didn't have any issues with baby's position. He was in the ideal position that you want baby to be in for delivery, and I had very little back pain. I started to get back pain towards the end. The very end is when I started to feel it, and it was maybe the last month. And I did drink red raspberry leaf tea that's said to help with toning the uterus. And so I tried to do a lot of holistic things. I did my own research on them. I know there's mixed research about it, but I saw that for some people it worked, and so I just believed for that. I believed that it would work for me, and I believe that all of that had a hand in, the experience that I had. But ultimately, it does come down to your mindset. Mm-hmm. And did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
So now, knowing everything that you've known, you've gone through your first child. If you were to get pregnant again, how would you do anything different? Would you have go to the same route and all that, or how would you do things a little differently if you thought to do that?
How I would do things differently would definitely be to come here, Santa Clarita Birth Center. I want to do a birth center, potentially a water birth. I'm open to that, but definitely still going the route with no medication. It was just the best experience you could have. I loved my experience, but I still want to come to a birth center as opposed to a hospital. But I think everything else is the same. Mm-hmm. I think that would be the biggest thing, is just changing the environment.
Sure.
And then maybe even doing a home birth.
Yeah.
Potentially, it depends on, our living situation, because right now we're in an apartment, and I'd rather have our home, do it there where it's more space. Mm-hmm. So
then you don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, I know. It would be ideal to just be right there. So either a birth center or at home are the 2 things that I would change. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to leave us with?
I'll just repeat again what I said before about how I want to help inform and educate people. So for me, it's on my heart to help change the narrative around birth. We hear a lot of really crazy, bad stories, and I think we need more positive stories. And that's why I wanted to share mine, because I had such a great experience. And I know that more women can have those experiences, but we've got to educate ourselves. We can't rely on our care providers. Unfortunately, we can't rely on them to give us all the information. They are there to help, but we also have to meet them halfway, whether it's at a hospital, birth center, or you're giving birth at home. And so, yeah, let's change the narrative.
Yes, I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And Brittany, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you. Bye, guys.